Some of the supply chain benefits that we've realized include our simplification of our order entry process. As I mentioned, we are using the product builder module, and what that module does is it allows our customer service individuals to effectively configure a tank right in Dynamics AX. They have the ability to select the size of tank, the volume, any of the accessories that need to be put on that tank. And what the system then does is it takes all of the inputs that the customer service person has put in, looks back in the database and finds the applicable bill of materials and route for that tank, pulls it back, and then allows that customer service person to launch the work order directly to the floor, providing a nice tie back between our floor, the cost that it takes us on the shop floor, to our sales side for comparability purposes. Also allows us to calculate the list price of those tanks. So the product builder module does that for us automatically. We input our component costs of all of our items, which then roll up based on the configuration that customer service individual builds. The other part of the order entry process is now, if we have tanks in inventory, we are able to reserve those physically to our sales orders. So we can look up in our inventory to see if there's a specific tank that a customer is requesting, and if there is, we can take that and physically reserve it to our sales order for that customer so that nobody else can steal it on you, in effect. Tracking of tanks definitely is a key for us. We have what we call sold not shipped inventory, which is inventory that customers have already taken possession of physically, but really have not had that tank shipped out to their site. So we store it for them in our yard, but it really does not belong to ZCL any longer. So we need to clearly keep track of those tanks and where they are in inventory and who they belong to. And of course, product history for us is extremely key because of the environmental concerns with the types of materials or liquids that are stored in our tanks. We'll have customers who have purchased a tank from ZCL 20 years ago that may call us up saying that they've got a tank located wherever, but don't know when it was purchased, don't know anything about it, and we have the ability then to go back into our custom table that we built, whereby we loaded our historical information and search that out and find that tank and see all the details about it. Additionally, on any new tanks produced in AX to date, this table is automatically updated with information such as when it was produced, the customer, where it was shipped to, various things like that. Again, the size, volume, things like that on the tank, so that we have a nice clear record of what's there. The system has allowed us to basically limit our commission payments to when our invoices are paid by our customers. So this is great from our perspective in that we do not give our commission payments to our representatives in the United States and the distributors until we've received cash from our customers. And of course, as I mentioned many times, inventory visibility. It's now real time, no longer the month-end flushing process. So we have any ability to look at our raw materials on a day-to-day basis and figure out what needs to be ordered based on the future demand that is coming, as well as in comparison to what we have in stock. So I will now turn it back to Mike Foster, who will give us some final notes here.
Yeah, it's Mike here again. One thing I will point out about the information that Corey has provided about ZCL is we often hear the horror stories about ERP, but rarely do we hear about the successful stories of ERP implementation. So I think it was really great for Corey to share the fact that they had a plan, they had a vision, and they were able to execute that plan and vision largely on scope and certainly within the budget. So again, thanks Corey for that, and congratulations on your successful implementation of AX. So from just a couple slides left here before we get to questions. One thing we find in the marketplace is many small and medium-sized manufacturing companies face similar business challenges as their larger brethren, without necessarily the budget for a mega implementation and a mega team. So to that end, Ideaca has developed an accelerator or a launch pad, if you will, based on AX called IDART. And that IDART accelerator is based on a pre-configured Canadian company. It includes all the financial, sales, procurement, inventory, and production capabilities that we find are typical for those organizations. It also includes the elements that are often forgotten when people are thinking about ERP and focusing solely on the solution. So we've included training materials, data conversion templates, role-based security, sort of all the not so fun stuff, but absolutely necessary. And I guess the best part is that you retain the ability to still configure the system for the last mile of your unique business processes. So that's our IDART overview. I think you might be interested to note the note below here. Again, I think this is from Nucleus about its capabilities for repeat and discrete manufacturing. But the latest version of AX, just released by Microsoft a couple weeks ago, does provide exceptional coverage for mixed mode, including discrete, process manufacturing, as well as lean manufacturing for those that are working on their lean journey. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So just in particular, a couple highlights of the capabilities within IDART, and these are tied back to what Frank and Corey were talking about. In terms of productivity, we often find firms are looking for a way to manage the flow of the products on their floor without necessarily getting into extreme detail production scheduling down to the minute or the hour. So they're looking for a way to schedule or sequence jobs on the floor. We often find firms, I think similar to what ZCL was doing, where they're using a whiteboard or they're using a big board in the production control office. And we've built into the AX solution the ability for organizations to sequence or schedule jobs on a daily basis, and then those are automatically reflected into what your workforce is seeing. In terms of product cost, Corey's touched on that. I think you should realize that AX does provide the ability for you to track multiple versions of your BOMs over time. Therefore, you're able to track multiple versions of the cost of those items. And so over time, as new items come in to the BOM or old items go out, you have visibility of what the cost of goods sold was. As well, you have the ability to incorporate and calculate overhead costs. In terms of customer service, again, Corey touched on this in terms of the visibility. You'll find definitely that your customer service people are going to be able to see the visibility of inventory of finished goods for those things that are produced inventory. More importantly, if you're doing custom work, providing you the lead time calculations based upon procurement lead times and or production times for your customers. And having good visibility of that will give them confidence that you'll be able to deliver that on time. So just a final note about the Nucleus research that is on the next slide. Thank you. I think Frank touched upon this. You may note that Nucleus has been doing research on Dynamics AX product for well over 5 or 6 years now, and have actually gone out and analyzed hundreds of AX deployments. And a number of the different benefits have been highlighted as we've gone through here. Every organization is definitely unique, but there are definitely a lot of common threads throughout. For those that are looking to build a business case around an ERP implementation, I think you'll definitely find this some interesting and thought-provoking reading and see how it applies to your business. Okay, so on the next slide, just a brief highlight. If you want to have a look at our website, you can get some further information on our client success stories. We have a brochure on there about our IDART product, and we can segue into questions. And I think we've gone a little bit long, but yeah, so I'll turn it back to Derek to moderate the questions.
Thank you, guys. And we do have some great questions that we want to get to. We only have about 5 or 10 minutes here, but we're going to start where I believe this one comes in from Rick from Winnipeg. What is the best way to or for manufacturers to assess what ERP system, if any, is right for them?
Frank, do you want to take a stab at that?
Well, the question is about which one is right. I think, once you know what it is that you want to do internally, there are a number of very good tools out there. So you want to, you need to figure out how much money you got to spend. That's one way to kind of start to thin down the herd. There's a lot of different ERP systems out there. You want to look for who's got a track record. Is this an ERP system that's 30 years old, and hasn't changed much? Online, products like LinkedIn, there are a number of places you can search for information about success stories and what people are seeing. So I would say start with what it is that you want to do internally, get some sense of how much money you want to spend, and then start to look for products that are out there that might meet your needs, and then find a trusted advisor.
Perfect. And this one comes in from Clay, and it's actually a two-part question. First off, one of your slides indicated the average ROI was seen after approximately 18 months. Is that typical for SMEs as well as large manufacturers?
I would think so. I mean, my experience, and I've done a number of ERP implementations over the last 20 years, these numbers that we saw on the slide are very typical. It's really going to depend on how well you execute. Is this your first ERP implementation, second or third? Because, as you can appreciate, it's easier to get the 20 or 30% benefit out of your first implementation. It's harder to eke out the next 10% and so on. What is nice is each time you go through, you get better at doing it. So you spend less money getting the benefits to get to the benefits. So yeah, it's fairly typical.
Perfect. This one's actually for Corey. Corey, how long was the vendor selection process for ZCL?
Yeah, it was approximately 6 months by the time we went through identifying our requirements, developing the RFP, and then doing the evaluation and demonstrations and the like. Approximately 6 months.
And Mike and Frank, is that typical from an Ideaca point of view?
Yeah, I'd say that we find definitely a range when folks are sort of seriously considering it. That 4 to 6 month range is quite common. We definitely have companies that are intrigued by it and are sort of building up their internal business case, and that sometimes can take over a number of years, in fact. So there is a variety out there.
This one comes in from Wyatt, and again, it's for Corey. Corey, what would be your top recommendation for SMEs looking to implement ERP?
I'd have to say my top would be make sure that you identify clearly what you want to do. What is in scope? What are the processes that you want to take care of? And then past that, I think Frank touched on it, executive support. That support from the top is super, super important. As everybody knows, change is very, very difficult and troublesome for a lot of people. And if you don't have that support coming from the top, being part of that project team becomes pretty painful.
For ZCL, was that executive level support, was that organic, or was that earned through whatever it may be, pitches or so on and so forth?
I would think that, this is Mike here. Actually, I was on the board, on the steering committee for the project, and that was definitely organic, driven from the inside, right from the CFO and the COO. They wanted this to be successful. They were active on a weekly basis, supporting Corey and the implementation team with the changes. So definitely it was driven from the top that this was a necessary goal for the organization.
In terms of Ideaca, you guys are nationwide?
Yes, we have presence across Canada.
And what is the best way for manufacturers to reach you?
I believe on the next slide we've got a couple of content email address is probably the easiest.
Perfect. Is there anything else, Frank, Corey, or Michael, that you guys would like to add before we wrap?
Just to kind of maybe, it's Frank here, just the comment back to executive support. I absolutely can't emphasize enough that if you're going to go down this road, to have, the guy in the corner office come into a meeting, often there's weekly status meetings, for them to take 10 minutes even to dial in, be on the call, be viewed as being actively involved in the project, has an incredible impact on the success of the project.
Right on. I think that's very pertinent advice. But if there's nothing else to add, I would like to point all of our participants to the Ideaca website. It's actually a wonderful website with a number of great resources, www.ideaca.com. Frank or Michael would be more than happy to answer any of your questions. Corey, are you available to take questions via email regarding ZCL's implementation?
Sure, yeah.
Absolutely. So if there's, would you guys like to add anything else before we close her down?
I just want to, this is Mike here, I just want to thank you, Derek, for organizing this, and again, thank Corey for contributing the ZCL success story, and thank everyone for their time.
Absolutely. I think it was a wonderful presentation, well executed, and very informative. So thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, guys.